My Doctor Said What is a program for health information. Be careful that if you want treatment and diagnosis of disease, you need to go to your local healthcare provider. I am hot-blooded. This is Dr. Frank with a fever of 103 on My Doctor Said What? Today I want to tell you a couple things we want to talk about. First, there's a fun facts about fever. Fever is your body's response usually to infection and sometimes inflammation. What it does is lower the viscosity of your blood, allows better blood flow. It's an immune response that allows blood to transfer white blood cells to fight your infection more effectively. Now, obviously, you don't want a fever to go uncontrolled. If you're an adult, you don't want to see fevers much over 101. Kids, you really like to not be above 103. Anytime either one you get over a fever of 100, you need to probably see your healthcare provider right away, or at least call them on a telehealth visit and see what they want you to do. Drink plenty of fluids. Be careful, but you can take NSAIDs such as Aleve or ibuprofen or good old Tylenol or aspirin in certain cases, but there are contraindications there, especially you don't want to end up with something like Reye syndrome if you have the flu in your kid. You don't want to take aspirin. So again, ask your health care provider. If in doubt, talk to your doctor, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant. And with that, I want to talk today about cancer. Cancer, the dreaded word that people hate hearing, the second leading cause of death in this country after heart disease. And it's interesting, there are many cancers that are preventable. There are very few, 5 to 10% that are inherited. There are markers for potential predispositions, but as I've said on my podcast before, just because you're predisposed doesn't mean genetics loads the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. So don't take drastic actions if you find out you're predisposed to a certain gene for certain types of cancer or any other disease. You need to look at the steps to have effective prevention and not necessarily start lopping off body parts or doing things that are not advised and have more risks than the actual disease in many cases. Cancer, first of all, cancers, not all tumors are cancer. They can be benign, just cells that have grown out, such as different types of cells, but they're not uncontrolled growth of different cell types, which is what cancer is. It comes from the Latin word for crab, cancer. So, interesting fact, cancer is, there's over 200 different types of cancer, and many of them are very treatable today. So just because you hear that word from your healthcare provider, or you go to Dr. Google and swear you have it, and that's not true. It takes true diagnoses of cell types, usually by a pathologist, which I am one, is what you need to look at. And so you want to make sure, first of all, your diagnosis is correct. If there's any doubts, always get a second opinion. Your life may depend on it. Early treatment, early diagnosis, and preventative measures are your best chances to live a long, happy, healthy life with great quality of life. So, but don't panic, because if you panic, you get release of things like cortisol, and that suppresses your immune system, and you're less able to fight the disease of something like cancer, even if it's a simple cancer or tumor that's confined, that's really treatable. You do not want to panic. First, get the facts, talk to your healthcare provider. If you're concerned about the diagnosis, you need to get a second opinion, and then you need to take the best course of treatment that is recommended by your healthcare provider. But the most common cancers, breast, prostate in men, basal cell, skin tumors, melanoma, unfortunately, which is a difficult one. Both of those are from sun exposure. Kidney, lung, colon/bowel, and those are the ones that come to mind and are on the top 10 list. Those are ones you need to look out for. Your yearly annual health physical examination and your blood test are the best ways to stay on top of your health overall and to look at any issues such as increased white blood cell count that may indicate infection, inflammation, or tumor formation in early stages. So you need to do those things instead of finding out later. Some people say, I don't want to know. Yes, you do. Very treatable early, most cancers. Get in the later stages, stage 2, 3, 4, gets much tougher. So, again, only 5 to 10% are inherited. So it's not your genes, it's your lifestyle that's causing the issue 90% of the time. What are the risk factors for cancer? Smoking, number 1. UV light. Get out and get that good looking tan until you become a little older and get leathery looking, and then all of a sudden you'll find yourself, as I do, as a pre-sunscreen person, where you've got to watch your forearms, your hands, and your face, and you'll develop little things like keratoses a lot of times, which are little rough patches and skin spots. I have to have those removed on a regular basis. Those are precancerous, and we don't want those to morph into basal cell or melanomas, skin cancers, which can be very deadly. So you want to be careful, stay on top of it. See a dermatologist if you have any unusual signs on your skin ever, some wound that won't heal, a rough patch that won't heal, something that's changed color, moles that change in any way. See your dermatologist. See your primary health care provider and your dermatologist. Then you've got, believe it or not, alcohol and obesity, major factors for developing different types of cancer. Alcohol, very hard on the liver, very hard on the kidneys, is definitely linked to increases in cancer and those and in blood-borne cancer such as leukemia, which thankfully we made great strides in treatment. Just like breast cancer, if it's non-metastatic, caught early, a lot of great treatments out there. We've even developed a lot of good treatments for early detection of lung cancers. Again, you want to keep your weight down, which changes your hormone balance, which powerful endocrine disruptors can definitely cause cancers throughout the body, especially in the urinary or genital tract for men and women, and in your breast tissue. So you want to make sure that you keep your weight under control. Again, I've said this many times, but the best way to know if your weight's under control is have your yearly physical, your actual weight and height, and then you've got your triglycerides, your high and low density cholesterol, and the ratio of those things together give you a good picture of where you're at as far as heart disease, but also in your chance of becoming diabetic or having later tumor development or cancer cell development. So what you want to do is look at all those things, and in addition to that, you want to take self-examination, especially if you're a woman. Do your self-breast examination once a month. Feel uncomfortable doing that, have your spouse or whatever help you out. I'm sure they'll volunteer. But you also need to know, man or woman, you need to look at breast cancer. Men don't have to look as often, but if you're overweight, you definitely want to look at it. And again, rule of thumb is the worst kind of weight you can have is in your midsection that causes health risks for both heart disease and cancer. So you want to make sure that you take your height in inches. I've done this before. I'm 72 inches tall. So I don't want to waste this any more than half my height in inches. So half of 72 is 36 inches, which means my waist needs to stay below 36 inches no matter what my weight is. You can be underweight and still have a lot of belly fat, especially as you get older, you hit menopause, different factors in your life, you hit menopause. So you want to make sure that you keep that in proportion. That's the really best way. BMI is really a decent measure, but this is a far better measure. So if you're a woman that's only 5 feet tall, 60 inches, then you can't have a waist over 30 inches without being an indicator of bad health effects. So you want to stay under that halfway in your height in inches in your waist size. Really, really important. So with that, I would say keep these things in mind. Believe it or not, the average age for tumor development, and it is age related, the older you get, the higher chance you have of erratic cell development and uncontrolled growth, is 85 to 89 years old. So even though a lot of people have different tumors, the age at which you develop tumors and treatment doesn't work nearly as well as between 85 and 89. So if you're lucky enough to be that age and ever get to that age, you have to be even more vigilant about looking out. But if you do your yearly physical and you have your blood test and you have a healthcare provider that you have faith in, and you get a second opinion if you think something's wrong, and you don't freak out and let your cortisol levels and your adrenaline go nuts in your fight or flight, and you keep your stress down low, keep your alcohol down, don't smoke, stay out of the sun without sunscreen and reasonable protection such as rash guard fabrics or sun protective fabrics, and you watch your weight, then you're going to be in good shape. Stay hydrated. That's always good for flushing everything out of the system. And as I've said, I think everyone should think about at least a carbon water filter, that like a Brita or something, whether it's in a pitcher or in the water you drink. It's great to have reverse osmosis if you could afford it, or if you're on a well. Those are wonderful things so that you're not exposed if you drink a lot of water from your home. I'm not a big bottled water advocate. A lot of bottled waters are worse than tap water or well water because they're full of plasticizers and other things like BPA. So I want to just watch those easy risk factors, and I think you'll be in great shape. So with that, I'd ask you to have a great day. Watch my TikTok, Instagram, and my podcast on all major platforms. And I appreciate you watching the Dr. Frank, My Doctor Said What YouTube video today. Have a great day. Remember, send your comments and questions to Dr. Frank at mdswpod@gmail.com.